So today we're going back to September 1889. I'm not sure of the exact date, but the British India Company steamer Jumna has arrived in Mill Bay Docks, and on board is a chap called Mr. Levy. Now Mr. Levy is not his real name, but we'll get back to that in a moment. What Mr. Levy does is he walks from the docks and he's looking for somewhere to stay for the night, and he arrives at the Grand Hotel where he checks in, and as far as anyone's aware, there's nothing too unremarkable about that. But there is a rather remarkable feature of Mr. Levy's visit to the Grand Hotel, and that is because he has with him his pet lion. Now, we don't know how old the lion is, presumably over 6 months old, so it's a fair size animal by this point. The staff at the hotel, you'd expect to be a bit taken aback, but in fairness to them, none of them seem to be fazed. Rooms found for Mr. Levy, and the lion cub is found some rather pleasant and comfortable quarters in the hotel cellars, and staff are sent out and return shortly with 5 pounds in weight of raw beef. So we said Mr. Levy was not his real name. And this is a man of many aliases, and the one for which he's perhaps most well known is Frederick Bailey Deeming. Now, Frederick Bailey Deeming, if you don't know, was perhaps one of the most notorious serial killers of the Victorian age. So before we get on to Mr. Deeming's serial killing, we have to go back in time just a few months to 1888, when in Plymouth there was a massive insurance swindle perpetrated by a group of local people, and one other man by the name of General Wolford, not his real name. Now, the Western insurance scam started in early 1887, but by the time it actually got up and running off the ground, it was early 1888. This company, formed by Wolford and this group of local men, issued prospectuses, they issued shares, and then they started taking money for insurance premiums, mostly in the shipping industry. Unfortunately, I think General Wolford was actually Frederick Bailey Deeming, and he was an absolute profligate, incorrigible fraudster and conman. And he basically used the funds of the Western Insurance Company as his own personal bank account. There was a little bit of disquiet started to be voiced about the company by early 1888, but General Wolford, also known as Frederick Bailey Deeming, sought to head this off by presenting Plymouth with its first steam pump fire engine. Now, this was a massive affair. He organised a massive banquet at the Guildhall for the presentation of this fire engine. All the great and good of the city were here. Flower arrangements provided by Hender and Sons, and even the band of the Royal Marines provided the musical accompaniment. The General Wolford's wife, Kate, as she was known, she christened the steam pump the Western, and the councillors of Plymouth Borough Council were each presented with a gold medallion to note the occasion. So that was that. Everybody seemed quite happy about how things were going on. Any worries about the Western Insurance Company seemed to be put to one side. Unfortunately, it soon became rather apparent that the insurance company was a complete fraud. They had no assets, they had no capital, and before too long the company was liquidated, and the only thing they had that could be used by the liquidators to repay some of the creditors was the steam pump fire engine. So that was taken away from Plymouth. And General Wolford, what happened to him? He disappeared. And that really is that. There's a very murky period then between the rest of 1888 and up to August 1891. Now, on August the 17th, 1891, a box appeared at Friary railway station, in the goods station. Unfortunately, the address was an undeliverable one, and the name couldn't be placed for anyone within in the town, and so it stayed there. This box stayed at Friary Station for the next 6 or 7 months. That is until in March 1892, an absolutely gruesome murder was discovered so far away. It was in Melbourne in Australia. A woman had been murdered, and she'd been buried beneath the floorboards of a house in the Windsor district of Melbourne. And this started up a chain of events which linked its way all the way back to the box at Friary Station. Once the murder in Melbourne was discovered, the perpetrator was chased halfway across Australia. He didn't know he was being chased. He was busily lining up his next victim, who was actually from Callington, a young girl called Kate Rouncewell. But he was on his way to the gold mines, where somehow, with no training, no certification, he managed to secure himself a job as an engineer at a gold mine. Eventually, Melbourne police caught up with him there. It was soon discovered that this man was in fact not Baron Swanston, who he's claiming to be, but Frederick Bailey Deeming. Suddenly, police in England became interested because Mr. Deeming's wife had disappeared at around 6 or 7 months previous to that in Rain Hill, in Merseyside. His wife hadn't been seen since then, and so the police then looked into his business in Merseyside and discovered that he was living in a house in Rain Hill, a villa, Dinham Villa it was called. It remained empty since Deeming had left it. And of course, once the police arrived at this villa, they discovered that in the rooms, Deeming had murdered his wife and his 3 children and buried them in under the floorboards of several of the rooms in the house. How does this link back to Plymouth? Well, a canny employee at the Friary goods station had been following the story of the chase of Deeming across Australia, and the story then of the Rain Hill murders. And he sort of put 2 and 2 together because he realised that this box had come from Merseyside, had come from Widnes Station actually. And he let police in Merseyside know. They were very keen to know what was inside the box, of course. So it was sent up to them. Once they opened it, inside the box were the blood-stained clothing and certain other effects that belonged to the children. And to really, we know that it was definitely connected to that because inside the box was a shoe which formed a pair with the shoe that Mrs. Deeming was wearing when she was found under the floorboards. So eventually Mr. Deeming was found guilty of the murder of his wife in Australia, where he was eventually executed, and he was never to return to Plymouth or England, and he never stood trial for the murder of his family in Merseyside. One small sort of anecdote to latch on to that is you're probably all wondering what happened to the lion cub. Well, shortly after arriving in England with Mr. Levy, or aka Deeming, he took it home with him. Obviously it got to such a size that he couldn't keep it in his house. It was kept outside, where lion did what a lion would do and started attacking various passers-by, animals, etc. So eventually Deeming sold it to a travelling show, and in 1892, on the back of all the notoriety of the murders in Rainhill and in Melbourne, the enterprising travelling showman took Deeming's lion on a massive tour of the UK, including Plymouth, where it played to packed houses.
Thank you very much, Andy.